We begin today's shiur 11 lines from the top of Daf Mem Ches. Before we begin the text itself, we glance at the side under the nosei, the topic heading feature that you see in the margin, which reads, Hesber Machlokes HaTanoim. We're going to explain the Machlokes, the Tanaic controversy that was alluded to in our Mishnah, Be'inyan Chalilin U'Mekeinenes She'nitan La'aniyah She'nigberes. The Mishnah spoke about a situation of a husband having to bury his wife. What must he provide in that? Mishnah mentioned flute players, Chalilin. Mekonenes is a woman who knew how to arouse the emotions of the public by being a Mekonenes. Kinos is a word referring to dirges and all that implies. So we'll refer to her henceforth as the Mekonenes. The Gemara text. This Gemara opens with a quote from the Mishnah on Mem Vav Amid Beis. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Afilu Oni Sheb'Yisrael Lo Yivchos Mishnei Chalilin U'Mekonenes. That even an impoverished man shall not provide less than 2 Chalilin, 2 flutists, and a Mekonenes. Michlal, the Tanakama Savar Hanilo. It would then appear that the Tanakama would say that these things are not needed. Heichidomi, what are the circumstances? I de urcha, if it is the way of her family, that when women in her family die, there would be Chalilin and a Mekonenes. My taima the Tanakama domalo. Why would the Tanakama say that this wife wouldn't receive these things at her funeral? If the women in her family, that was their practice, she should receive the same. V'yi delo urcha, and if it's not the way of her family, that these things weren't present at the funeral of women in her family, my time of Rabbi Yehuda, then why is Rabbi Yehuda insisting that she should receive it? Why should she have special treatment? Lo tzricha. No, it's necessary to be taught. In other words, our Mishnah is featuring the following background, upon which we will have a machlokes tanoim. So, what's the background? Kagon to urche didei v'lav urcha dida. It's the custom of his family to have these things, and it's not the custom of her family to have these things. Tanakama sovar. The Tanakama who suggests that she does not get these things. The Tanakama holds, based on a phrase in the Torah, Be'ulas Baal, without getting into the literal translation of that, but Be'ulas Baal, the word Be'ulah, can also, as you see, the root of the word can be Aliyah, rising with her husband. So there's a concept that when a woman gets married, she's entitled to the benefits that are customary on his side, on the husband's side. In our case, in fact, it's the husband's side that has these things, not her side of things. So the Tanakama is of the following opinion: Ki amrinan oilo imoi v'eino yoredes imo. When the rule that's derived from that expression Bulas Baal applies, that she rises with him, benefits from the benefits that are characteristic of his family, and does not lose out. Hanimili mechayim. That's a reference to practices, to things that one enjoys during their lifetime. But when you're dealing with matters after death, then we can say yoredes. She does go down, so to speak. The Rashi, on the upper part of the Rashi column, in the upper part of the narrow lines, Hani milu mechayim, kagon hu omer lahonik es beno, v'hi omer es shelo lahonik. if you have, let's say, a controversy between a husband and wife regarding the nursing of their newborn, and a husband says, I want you to nurse, and she says, no, I don't want to nurse. The derech benos mishpachto lahonik benehem, and it's, let's say, the way of her family to in fact nurse the children. V'lo derech mishpachto, and it's not his way. And when we speak about the not nursing, it means that the children in the husband's family were provided this service, if you will, by expending funds for it, which we would say, which would ultimately benefit the wife. And as it frees her up, she's not restricted. If she wants to nurse, obviously she can. But if it's inconvenient for her, she would have more freedom. So that would be considered an aliyah, a positive thing. So in his family, it wasn't customary for the women to be bound for nursing purposes. So she has a right, even though in her own family the women folk did nurse their own children. In his family it wasn't their style, wasn't their practice. So she's oila imo v'eino yoreda. She doesn't have to lose out on that benefit. But that's something that's mechayim, that's during life. Here we're talking about funeral elements. And in funeral elements, so the Tanakama holds that her ability or her claim on benefiting from the practices of his family don't apply. Rabbi Yehuda Sovar, Rabbi Yehuda says that she is entitled to these things. Sovar, he holds, afilu lachar misa, even matters after death. She doesn't have to go down to the way of her family, but is entitled to those benefits, as is the case over here, that it was his family's practice to have the Chalilin and the Konenes. Omar Rav Chisda, Omar Mar Ukva, Halacha Kerebi Yehuda. He rules, the Gemara here concludes it with a halachic ruling that the woman is entitled to these things, the Chalilin and the Konenes. The topic heading on the side of the Gemara says Baal Shenishtate, a husband that lost his mind, became an imbecile. He was normal at one point, but he lost his mind. Based in Yordan L'Nechosov, the Based in takes over, so to speak, his property with regard to the realm of seeing to the woman's care, that his family is cared for. The Gemara opens up with the word V'omar Rav Chisda. The Vav indicates a second comment of Rav Chisda's. In general, and throughout Gemara markings, people who are Gemara markings veterans will probably note that we like to mark off series of names when they appear in a series form. Here, we didn't do that. It's a totally new idea over here, and the names are very close textually to one another, so we didn't feel necessary to mark it off as such. But it's another statement of Rav Chisda in the name of Mar Ukva. That's why it begins with a Vav. V'omar Rav Chisda Mar Ukva, Mi shenishtate, someone who lost his mind. And you notice a diamond marking that appears on the side under the Mivneh heading, Shnei Mikrim shebeis din Yordan L'Chosav. We'll see two cases where Beis Din descends into his property, takes over to a certain degree, as each case will become clear. So here we're dealing with a man who lost his mind, based in Yordan L'Nechasav, v'zonin u'mefarnesin es ishto uvanov uvnoisav v'dovar acher. This is Mar Ukva's ruling that the court will then draw from his wealth, from his property, in order to provide food, and the word mefarnes in Rashi says is levush uksus. Personally, I didn't look into this Rashi in any depth, but the two words that Rashi uses, it'd be worth analyzing what is meant by levush and ksus. They're seeming two different things, but on a superficial level, they're both references to clothing. It could be that one's let's say, an inner layer of clothing, one's an outer layer of clothing, but it has to do with the realm of clothing. So the Beis Din supports food-wise and clothing-wise the man's wife, and says Bonav Uvnosov, and the man's children, the Dover Acher, that and something else. The Gemara will dwell on that later. Omar le Ravina le Ravashi. Ravina asks, "My shno mehadesanya." What is different about this case versus the following case? Misha halach lemedinas hayam. A man went abroad. V'ishto tovas mizonos, and the wife is demanding, "I need food support." Beis Din Yordan linechasav v'zonen umefarnisim es ishto. Beis Din descends upon his properties, his holdings, and provides food and the clothing, the levush uksus, as we saw before in Rashi, to the man's wife. Avol, and note the emphasis here in marking wise, Avol loy bonov uvnoisov veloy davar acher. The children are not provided for. And not the docher. It's noted in Rashi that a man is not obligated in the support of his sons and daughters. He's not obligated in providing them with food. The Gemara later on deals with some takonos usha, and that's again something that is subject to controversy. But there is this approach that a man is not obligated in the strict legal bottom line sense of providing food for his sons and daughters. Of course, up to a certain age, you can't even imagine how else can they survive. But let us say this much: that at a certain age, that could be very young, the basic bottom line says, go out and get your own income. Go do some work. You remember the old lemonade stand? Or babysitting, or plowing, or collecting eggs in someone's chicken farm, or whatever. Things that children can do. So that is how they would be supported. It's just important to note that a man is not, by letter of the law, he's not obligated to support them. So we have two situations. Mar Ukva addressed the situation of a man losing his mind. Beis Din takes over, and not only is the wife cared for, but the man's children are cared for as well. Man of sound mind goes abroad, wife is cared for, but not man's children. That's the question posed to Ravashi. Why the difference? Omar le, Ravashi says, V'lo shani loch, do you not see a distinction between yotzei lidas, liyotzei shelo lidas? There's a difference between a man who left the scene knowingly. The guy went abroad on a business trip or whatever. He went abroad for some whatever reason. He left the scene, but knowing, with knowledge, with full knowledge, as opposed to Yotzi Shalom Ladas means a person who left without any awareness. In other words, he lost his mind. A man who leaves knowingly. So, why did he not specify any provision for the support of his children? Because he doesn't want it. If he doesn't want it, we can't do anything about it. He's not obligated to that. The wife, on the other hand, that's an obligation that he has, whether he likes it or not. That's an obligation that he has upon marrying the woman, to provide mizonos for her. So for something that he's legally bound to provide, Beis Din moves in. For something that's not legally bound to provide, and he didn't make any special consideration, so Beis Din can't do anything about it. However, a person who lost his mind, there we reason. We assume, like I'm sure everyone who's listening to this shiur also would assume, that a person wants his children to be supported. We spoke before about letter of the law, but when it comes to a situation like this where he didn't have a chance to express himself, so the basin has a right to make an assumption that it's likely that the father would be very happy for his children to be supported. Again, we must emphasize, maybe some people will get the wrong idea. We were talking about letter of the law, and remember in the sugya that dealt with the redemption of the daughter, again we were talking about letter of the law. We're talking about a basic human emotion, basic feelings, etc. So when it comes to a person's interest in his children being supported, receiving food, you can't have anything more basic than that. So a father is happy for it to be seen too that his children are taken care of. However, where a person knowingly left the scene and didn't make any provisions for that, so this guy is apparently not so interested in his children being supported, because otherwise he would have noted that before he departed. He departed without noting that, so we cannot go beyond the letter of the law. And just to repeat, but where a person lost his marbles, there, Bezdins can make the assumption that most people would want their children to be provided for. And this guy, just beyond his control, he lost his mind, therefore Bezdin will support them from the man's properties. I personally hope that everyone is appreciating how sensitive and how deep the Shas, the Talmud, the oral law gets into the human psyche, and how so much a part of life the Torah is for each and every one of us. How it's very important to realize that, and to, when you learn the Gemara, it's not just it's not some type of intellectual exercise, something that's removed from us, but it's speaking to us eye to eye, occupying every fiber of humanity. Let us continue with the Gemara. My davar acher. We have a little arrow to the immediate left-hand side of the Gemara. You can just a couple lines before we mentioned davar acher, and Mar Ukva also made reference to the davar acher. What is that? Now, it's true that we mentioned Mar Ukva, but when you study the Rashi carefully, the Gemara here, when it's asking my davar acher, according to Rashi, there are two approaches, there are two opinions as to what this is a reference to. We're going to take the first approach that Rashi presents, even though he actually says Veli Nira, he has a second approach that he seems to prefer, but for our purposes, we're going to go with the first approach of Rashi. Davar acher, it said in the source that a man who went abroad and was of sound mind, he made and did not make any provisions. So we said in the source, children don't get supported from his property. And there's also velo davar acher. What do we mean? No davar acher, that the wife doesn't get davar acher. What is that? Rav Chisda Amar zeh tachshit. Tachshit has to do with jewelry and cosmetics, matters that relate to the beautification of the woman. Rav Yosef Omar tzedakah. Tzedakah is money for charitable purposes. Man de Omar tachshit, one who says, that's Rav Chisda, who says that she doesn't get even provisions for jewelry and cosmetics. Kol shekain tzedakah, certainly she's not going to get a charity allowance that would be money that she would be entitled to distribute for tzedakah purposes. Ma'adomer tzedakah, the opinion that says that she is not entitled to receive money for charitable purposes. Avol tachshit yavinon law. However, the jewelry and cosmetics will be provided for her. A husband does not want his wife to appear ugly. The topic heading on the side, the notes say, Misha holach misayam, ubeintayim mesa ishto, a man who went abroad. In the meantime, the wife died. Based in Yarden l'chosav v'kover noso l'fi kvoda. Beis Din goes into the man's property, takes from his holdings, from his wealth, and sees to it that she is buried according to the due honor to her. Omar the Gemara. Omar Rav Chia bar Oven. Omar Rav Huna. Misha holach nizayam unesa ishto. A man who went abroad and in the meantime his wife dies. Beis Din Yarden l'nechosov. You can see the diamond again, like we indicated before, of the Beis Din descending into his properties, taking over, withdrawing funds from his holdings. The koivrin oisalafi kvodoi, and she is buried according to the honor that's characteristic of his family. The Gemara asks, "Lefi kvodo levelo lefi kvoda." Are we saying that the method and the style of the funeral is according to the honor that his family is accustomed to, and not her? Amo, rather say af lefi kvodo. Of course, if there are any honors that her family is accustomed to, she is to receive those. But even if not, and we say even honors that are characteristic of his family, she is to receive. Ha komash malon. This tells us, this ruling of Rav Huna tells us, oilo imo v'eino yeredes imo, the idea that a woman is entitled to benefit from the benefits characteristic of his family, and does not go down, doesn't lose out on those things. Even matters that are pertinent after death. So that if there are things that though her family doesn't practice in matters of burial, but his family does, and it's increased honor, she's entitled to those things. This is a point that we discussed earlier, and that's why you'll see little arrows to the immediate right-hand side of the Gemara text. On the side of the Gemara, we have a nosei mivneh heading. You'll note there's an aleph and beis that appear in the Gemara. They represent shnei shlavim, two stages, b'havonas dino shel Rav Matana, in trying to understand what Rav Matana teaches here. Be'inyan mi sheloi roitze sheyotzir hoitzos minachosav avur kvura. Someone who expresses his lack of desire, his unwillingness to have payments made from his holdings, from his properties for burial purposes. The Gemara, again noting that there are two stages. Amar Rav Matana, ha'omer, a person who at the time of his death he announces, im mesa lo sigbarua minachosav, referring to his wife, when she dies, I don't want monies paid from my properties for her burial. Emphasis must be placed on the idea here that he is dying first, leaving her a widow. As such, she collects the ksuba, that's money that was guaranteed to her at the point they marry. He is therefore not obligated to her burial. Whoever inherits her ksuba, when she dies, they will have to take care of her burial. Therefore, Rav Matana says that if the man makes such an announcement that he doesn't want the widow, when she dies, to be buried from money from his properties, shomin lo, we listen to him. And don't worry about her body being left uncared for, unburied. That will be taken care of by those who inherit her ksuba. The Gemara asks, "My shna ki omar." Why is there an emphasis here on his saying, his articulating it? you'll notice two lines at the above, at the end of the line, the word ha'omer was squiggle underline. Why is that so important that he has to say this? Denafli nixi kami yasmi. It would seem to be obvious that the burial from his estate isn't going to be taken care of. The properties fall there. In his properties are inherited by the Yisomim, by the orphans, by his beneficiaries, and they are not obligated to her burial. So very nice. He said this, but it would be obvious. The properties fall. His properties that he was referring to, they are inherited by his heirs. Ki lo amar nami, even if he didn't make the announcement. Nixi kami yasmi ramu, the properties, his estate, is inherited by the orphans, by the heirs, and they're not obligated to her burial. So what's Rav Matana teaching us when his teaching focuses on a man making an announcement? He says, as if we're taking the text as is, even without his saying it, we wouldn't draw from his properties funds and monies for the widow's burial. Ella, rather, what Rav Matana was saying was something else. Ha'omer, a person who says imes hu, he says not regarding his wife, he says regarding himself. He says that upon his death, lo tigburuhu minachasav, that he doesn't want money from his account, from his properties, to be used for his own burial. Well, how should he be buried? From public charity funds. Ein shomin, we don't listen to a guy like that. Lav kol heimenu shiashiras bonav v'apilatzmo yalat tzibur. It's not within his power. Lav kol heimenu. It's not within his power to enrich his children by preserving his estate for them and only for them, and the other expenses, for example, his burial expenses, should be something that the public has to take care of. The Mishnah. L'oilom hi birshus ha'av. A girl is considered within the domain of her father. Ad shetikones, and we continue at the top of Omid Beis, lirishus habal linisuin, until she enters the domain of her husband. Linisuin, Rashi says, kloma shetikones l'chupa l'shem nisuin, until she enters the marriage canopy, which represents the consummation of the marriage. The Rashi at the bottom of Omid Aleph, at the beginning of the Mishnah commentary, L'oilam hi b'rishus ha'av, she's considered within the father's domain. The imbas Yisrael murasu l'koheni, if you're dealing with a father who is a non-Kohen, and she's entering marriage to a husband who is a Kohen. Kohen is someone who's entitled to the truma tithe that people separate from their produce. She, however, eina oicheles b'truma, she does not consume truma, even though she's entered the erus in the first stage of marriage to a Kohen. Maybe we should just preface that a Kohen's wife is entitled to eating truma, but at what point is she defined as such? So here we're saying that at that first stage of marriage, she does not eat truma. V'zakai bo k'chol schus abavito, and the father remains the beneficiary of all benefits accrued to him through his daughter, as we of course have learned in recent Mishnayos. So the Mishnah is declaring, is saying she's considered still in the father's domain with all of those ramifications until the nisuin to the husband, until she enters the chuppah with her husband. The Gemara, the Mishnah now goes through several situations we explain on the side under the nosei heading, Mimosai nechsheves isha b'rshus baila. From what point is a woman considered in the domain of the husband? We mentioned already the straightforward, simple case of the girl, of the woman entering the marriage canopy. There are additional cases. If you take a look, just let your eye skim ahead before we read the continuation of the Mishnah, you see there's some underlining and numbering. So you have case 1, which results in Birshus Habal, where she does enter the husband's domain, and we'll notice that even in a case where there's not the actual chuppah yet, but there's considered a departure from the father's domain, and there's departure from father's domain, which results in entrance to husband's domain with regard to these matters. So you have, in case 1, Birshus Habal. Under case 2, there are 2 situations. There's Aleph and Beis, but they result in Birshus Ho'av. She's still in the father's domain. And in case 3, you'll have Birshus Habal. Now, let's get into the details. Mosar Ho'av l'shluchei Habal. If the father gives his daughter over to agents or emissaries coming on behalf of the husband, and the father says, now you go with them. Harehi b'rshus Habal. She's considered within the domain of her husband. And as we saw, for example, it would appear that we can say she could now eat from Truma. Don't forget, we're dealing with a girl who already experienced Erusin. She already received money from the husband in exchange for her agreeing to marry him. But, and we've said this already many, many times, that the Erusin and the Nisuin are 2 separate stages as far as when learning the Mishnayos and Gemara, even though nowadays we don't see that, nevertheless it exists. We don't see it because in our practice we have the 2 done basically simultaneously or immediately, one following the other. But there in the Mishnayos and the Gemara, we're assuming there's a gap in time. So she already experienced the Erusin. She, by being given over by the father to the Shluchei Habal, she now enters the Baal's domain and would be entitled, as we said, to Truma. Hola Cho'av im Shluchei Habal. The father didn't give her over. He went with her. Note the difference between Mosar in case 1 and in case 2, Holach. The father continues, Holach Ho'av im Shluchei Habal. The father goes along with the agents of the husband. O Shaholchu Shluchei Ho'av im Shluchei Habal. Or the father didn't go with them, but he had his own agents that accompanied the daughter, and the father's agents, went with the agents sent by the husband to receive her. Harei hi b'rshus Ho'av. She remains in the father's domain. You can see how the father is continuing in the picture in case 2, Aleph and Beis. 3. Mosru shluchei Ho'av l'shluchei Habal. The father's emissaries that had accompanied the girl, now they transfer her over to the husband's emissaries. Harei hi b'rshus Habal. The Rashi on the second line from the top, Mosru shluchei Av. This is referring to this case 3. Shoyoav mishalchalo ayidei shluchav. The father had sent his daughter with his own emissaries in the direction of where the husband is. Upogu b'shluchei Habal umasru lahem, and they met up with agents or emissaries sent from the husband to receive her, and they gave her over to them. So at that point, she's considered B'rshus Habal. The Gemara opens up with a question focusing on the opening word of the Mishnah. Hence we have a little arrow point indicating to look at Omid Aleph, and if you do that, you look at the bottom line of Omid Aleph. The Mishnah opened up with the word La'olam. My le'olam. What does the Mishnah gain in saying that word? Le'olam is a word that literally means forever. It's a word of emphasis. And it would say that she is forever in the domain of the father until she enters the domain of her husband in Nisuin. What is gained by adding that word la'olam? Answer: la'afuke mi Mishnah Rishona, to the exclusion of an earlier Mishnah teaching. Disnan, there was an earlier teaching, and this we actually learned at the beginning of the Masechta. It says in this Tanaic source, Higia Zman v'lo nisu. There was a time, let's say a maximum of 12 months for a virgin marriage to take place between after the Erusin, where the husband declares, I want you to get ready for Nisuin. Rashi uses the expression mishetova habal lahochinas l'isuin. So, from the point that the husband, after the erusin, indicates, I want you to get ready for nisuin. I want you to get ready for the consummation of our marriage. 12 months are granted for that period of time. So the Mishnah Rishona says, Higia zman v'lo nisu. If the 12-month period comes and they didn't consummate their marriage, the husband said, I want to wait a little longer, or some other thing beyond his control prevented him from consummating the marriage with Nisuin. So now 12 months have gone by. Oichlois mishalai v'oichlois betruma. The wife, the woman, is entitled to receive support from him, and he's delaying it. That's maybe not the best thing, not right. It could be also an onus; it could be beyond his control. Nevertheless, she's entitled to receive food from him, and if she's a Bas Yisrael that was mu'ureses to a Kohen, the husband is a Kohen, and now you've got this delay, she eats truma. Komash Malon, our Mishnah comes to supersede this particular source and says L'olam, meaning that even after the 12 months, if she's a Bas Yisrael to a Kohen, she's not going to eat from Truma. She's not going to eat the Truma.